Hey guys, Josh here from Dark Divinity PCs. I'd just like to do an installation guide for you. Um, as you may know, I did an unboxing of the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. So I will be doing an installation guide on my folding rig here. So what you're going to need to do the installation is obviously your heatsink. You're going to also want a screwdriver with a number 2 Phillips end on it. You will also need isopropyl alcohol, 99% preferred, but 70% is fine as well. You will also need some sort of cleaning cloth that's as lint-free as you can get. So this is actually just toilet paper. You're going to need all the accessories that came with your Hyper 212 Evo, as well as thermal paste. Cooler Master did supply some. I won't be using it today, but this should be enough to do a few applications. I will be using Arctic Cooling MX4. I just prefer it. So that's pretty much it. So we can get started. Okay, first order of business is to take your motherboard out of your computer. Depending on the size and what form factor it is, the screws are going to be in different locations. So on this board you got one here, one here, one here, as well as one here, and one here, and then there's two on the ends. So take your board out, make sure you touch something grounded, like the case when the power supply is still plugged in. Pull your board out, make sure all your cards are pulled out. So what I'd like to start off doing usually is popping the memory out, just because it can get in your way. So I do pop that out and put them aside, just because when you install the larger heatsink, sometimes they can get in your way a bit. Also, you want to watch out if you are installing a large heatsink, which I'll show later on. You might have to put the memory sticks back in before you put the heatsink on. So this is going to be done on an AM3 Plus board. It's pretty much all the same with AMD, up to as old as AM2. I will explain how to do the installation on an Intel board as well, since it's pretty similar, at least for the Hyper 212. So just pull your heatsink off, set it aside, toss it or give it to a friend or whatever. And then what you're going to want to do is clean this guy off. So to clean the CPU off, you're going to want to grab your rubbing alcohol, take the cap off, and then tear off some of your cleaning cloth or material. I use this one-ply cheap toilet paper stuff you can get, at least I got from work. You can also use lint-free cloths, regular toilet paper, although I wouldn't recommend it. And also I've heard people using coffee filters, so you could try that as well. Okay, so now that the CPU is cleaned off, you can cap off your rubbing alcohol, set it aside, and set your cleaning material off to the side too. So the next step, this will apply to the AMD as well as Intel 775, 1155, and 1366. Basically, this will apply to any socket that's not LGA 2011. So you're going to want to take off the stock backplate and mounting bracket. Some coolers, they do use the original brackets. However, a lot of them, they come with aftermarket backplates and custom mounting. So on the AMD, it's just 4 screws. That comes off. And the back plate just comes off the back. So for the Hyper 212 Evo, at least for the newer style, you do get the LGA 2011 risers. According to the installation manual, for the 2011, you just screw these risers directly into the mounting bracket that's already on the board. There's no need to use this supplied bracket here from Cooler Master. So for LGA 2011, that's all you do, and then you follow the steps that we'll get to when you're actually mounting the heatsink itself. So what you're gonna do, at least for AMD, I'm gonna explain it for Intel as well. On the back of the motherboard, as you can see, this large flat plate here is for the AMD. So you're going to want to set that on the board, and hopefully you can see it, but you can see these tabs that are raised up. That's actually for Intel. So if you have an Intel board, you install it the other way around, and then you just basically follow the same procedure here. So you take your risers, and then I'm not sure if you could see, but there's actually a flat part. It's not perfectly round. That's because it corresponds with a flat part on the bracket. So what you're going to want to do is take your risers, put it up through the bottom of the board, or I guess the top of the board, put it through, and then take one of the nuts, and then lightly screw it on so it stays there. And then you're going to want to repeat that with the other 3 points on the board. Okay, so once you get them all in, you're going to want to get them finger tight. The next thing you're going to want to do is take your little wrench tool that you got with your 212 Evo. You're going to want to set it on and get your Phillips screwdriver. And while you're holding the nut or the riser on the other side, just tighten this guy down. And do that for all of them. You don't have to really force it. It's not like they're really going to go anywhere or vibrate off or anything. You just want to make sure that they aren't going to come loose after just a little bit of use. So that's it, they're all tight. So you can flip the board back over. So as you can see here, so you got your risers installed. So the next step is to get your 212 Evo and take the fan off. This is pretty much the way it's going to come off, come stock. So take the fan off, and in this case I'm going to set up this fan as a pull fan. That's because I am actually going to use this fan here that I did an unboxing of in a push config with this pulling. So with the stock brackets the way they are, I'm going to want to flip them around to the other side. So you're going to need your Phillips screwdriver again, and on here there's some rubber isolation pads which also keep tension on the bracket up against the heatsink. So you're going to want to peel those back a bit to expose the screw on the other side. So basically you just unscrew these and then mount them on the other side. Okay, now that I got those brackets on, I do want to warn you that you do want to be careful because these are plastic. I believe the older versions of the 212 Plus actually had metal brackets, but these are plastic that screw in, so you're going to want to be careful of how tight you tighten the screws, just because it'll be easy to crack and break these. But if you're careful, you shouldn't have any issues at all swapping around the brackets. So I can set that aside. So one thing I want to note, some people that they're going to want to install their heatsink this way, in which case, let me just turn the board around here, in which case, if you want to install memory, you're not going to be able to get it installed in this very last slot because the heatsink is actually going to be in the way. So if you install the heatsink in this manner, make sure you have your RAM installed already. Also note, I'll just install this one stick real quick. Also note that if you have really tall RAM, you're not going to have a whole lot of clearance. Like this here, it should clear. That's because it has low heat spreaders, low rise heat spreaders. But if you have really tall RAM that'll come up and hit this, the fins, you may either, if you really want it mounted to point up or down, the airflow up or down, you may have to cut some of the fins off here. I don't think you'd lose too much effectiveness just cutting a few fins off so that your RAM will fit. Or the other easier option is just to install it this way and either have the air flowing this way or this way. So that's what I'm going to do today, is have it pointing this way. So since I don't need to worry about having my RAM in there, I prefer to keep it out. So I'll take my RAM out. And then, what I like to do, you might be able to see it, but I got some fingerprints on there when I was putting the risers in. So what I like to do just before I install is give it a final wipe down just to remove any excess fingerprints or residue or anything that may have been on the CPU and on the heatsink. So just get that a wipe down, and then also give the heatsink one final wipe down just to make sure they're all nice and clean. Another note I want to make, which I believe I made in my unboxing video, is that on the Hyper 212 Evo, and I believe the 212 Plus, and many other heatsinks, when you buy them new, they're going to have a plastic film over the bottom. Please make sure you take that off first. Just because it's a nightmare if that melts to the CPU. Plus you're going to have really high temps, and it's going to be a big mess. So make sure the bottom of the heatsink is just metal. There's no plastic film or anything on it. So next step is to get your thermal paste. Since I'm not going to be using the Cooler Master stock stuff, which I have here somewhere, there we go. I'm not going to be using this, but it's pretty much the same application method. And I also have an unorthodox method. Some people, they like to use the grain of rice or the pea size. I actually do a square method. That's just my own personal preference. Like, there's big controversy of how you should apply thermal paste. Like which way to get the best coverage. Like some people, they do 2 lines or 1 line, or they do a grain of rice or a pea size, and I like to do the, I guess I'd call it the flat square method. So I'm gonna probably speed the video up through this, and then show you the final result. Okay, so it's not a perfect square, but it's kind of like a square. It's as thin as I can get it. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's as thin as I can get it. And yeah, so that's my method. You can do it any way you want. Just know that it's usually best to start in the center, and then once you put the heatsink on, it'll spread out. And then also, you don't need a whole lot. The best application of thermal paste is usually the thinner the better. I don't recommend getting a credit card and spreading it. However, there are some CPUs, if they don't have this aluminum heatsink or heat spreader on them, but those are really old now. So if you have one of those, it's probably time to upgrade, or it's not really worth putting something like this on it. So that's just my methodology. So we'll get on to installing the 212 Evo. Okay, so as we're going to install the 212 Evo, you're going to want to grab your X bracket that's going to sit in the center. There's a little thumb screw here to adjust the tension of how hard it is to adjust this. I turned it up all the way. That's pretty much the only reason that's there. It doesn't serve any other function other than to make this a little stiffer to change. As well, depending on which socket you have, you're gonna want to adjust these here, and then obviously you're gonna have to adjust it this way as well. But the way to adjust them is all you do is pull up and slide them. So I don't know if you can see that or if it's focusing, but basically you just pull it and then slide it and let go, and that's how you set it. There's little notches in there. So for AMD, the manual says to set them in the center. So that's what I did. So I'm going to be installing it this way, meaning my bracket, which is going to sit like this. There we go. So my bracket, which is going to sit like this, has to be installed this way. So what I'm going to have to do is first go all the way this way, and then slide it through here, and there's actually a little lock there, and then a little hole that this screw goes into just to stabilize it. So what I'm going to want to do, I believe I'm going to put it this way. So what you're going to want to do is fold it in, set it in, and then you're going to want to fold it back to where you need it, and then you just set it into the little hole there, and then the lock should hold it in place. So after that, you're going to want to, I think I got thumbprint on there again. Some people say it's not totally necessary. Like, you can get fingerprints on it, which you probably can. I don't think it's gonna really affect the performance so much. As for if it'll corrode the copper or not because of your finger oils, I can't say that for sure for longevity. But anyways, make sure it's clean, and then do your best to drop this as even as possible. So it's going to do a little settling and sliding on you for the first moment. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start some of these screws, or at least a couple of them. So take your Phillips screwdriver and get one started, and then go over to the opposite one and then get that one started as well. So if the screws don't seem like they're turning, it means the screw's probably a little bit crooked, and you don't want to force it. Best thing to do is back it off and then try again. You don't want to cross thread these because I don't think Cooler Master covers that under their warranty. So you get the two opposite started, and then you're going to want to get these two here started as well. So since it's already tightened down a little bit, I can start this one by hand. Get your screwdriver and get this one started as well. So once they're all started, make sure you position your heatsink as best you can. So once they're started, you're going to want to tighten them ever so slightly, and you're going to want to go in a crisscross pattern just so you don't put uneven force on the CPU. Now the nice thing about this is that the screws are spring-loaded, not like a lot of other systems. I believe Cooler Master's V8, it didn't have a proper spring-loaded system for AMD at least. Corsair's H series don't have a proper spring-loaded hold down. So I like these because the screws actually have springs in them and you don't have to worry too much about uneven loading. Still though, you're going to want to do the crisscross pattern of tightening, just because it's always better to be safe than sorry. So once they're down all the way, you'll feel it'll tighten up. You don't really need to get them super tight, since you do have the springs doing all the work of keeping the heatsink on. So you just need to tighten them until they touch the, or until they bottom out on the risers. That's pretty much the limit that you need to go to. So I got those all tightened, and I got my heatsink pretty straight, and it looks like I got a good amount of thermal paste. Like I could see tiny little dots. I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but there's tiny little dots sticking out there. That's basically what you want. Yeah, so you don't want a big gob of thermal paste to be sticking out the side of the CPU. If you're using electrically conductive thermal paste, it can harm your CPU. And B, it's a pain in the butt to clean up later. So that's pretty much it. The installation process is basically the same on the Intel boards. It's just this X bracket will be in a different position and your screws may be either out more or in more. Same process after you get the risers installed on the motherboard. Same process applies to LGA 2011. So final order of business is to attach your fans. I think I forgot to mention before, also when you're installing these brackets, make sure the wire is where you want it to go. Just because, you know, you don't want to have the fan like this, and have your wire up here, or if you have your wire over here and your plugs in this corner here. So plan ahead for your wire management. So I'm going to install these two fans, and I'll probably speed through the video and show you. So basically they just clip on real easy. And first thing I should mention, you're going to want to reinstall your RAM, because once you put the fan on here, it's going to be in the way. So install my RAM really quick. Okay, RAM's installed, and I'll speed through this installation video. There, so spend a little time doing wire management. Um, it's definitely worth it. It helps to have small fingers, but if you don't, get someone to help you. So as you can see, wiring's fairly neat. This is in an open system, so I can't have wires dangling anywhere because I might catch them and pull my system apart by accident. But yeah, that's it. Hope you like it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You can leave a message in the comments or message me through YouTube. I'd be happy to help you with any questions you have. So yeah, don't forget to rate and subscribe.